Hello, today we're going to talk about the composition of the blood, or basically what the blood is made of. So this video is the blood and its components. I actually took this PowerPoint from this website down here, sciencespot.net, so they should get credit for it. And then I modified it to add some of the things that we need for our Cambridge material, but it had a lot of good information in it, so I went ahead and used it first. What makes up our blood? Well, you have red blood cells inside your blood. They're also called your erythrocytes. They are the most abundant blood cells in your blood. So your blood actually contains mostly red blood cells. They're produced inside your bone marrow, which inside of the middle of your bones, there's kind of a gooey, softer substance called bone marrow. And that bone marrow actually produces red blood cells and makes red blood cells. And your red blood cells contain a protein called hemoglobin. And we talked about that earlier. Hemoglobin actually carries oxygen throughout your body through the blood. And you have white blood cells. They're called leukocytes. They're part of the immune system, and they are actually the blood cells that will attack and fight infections and viruses and that type of thing and try to keep you healthy. Then you've got plasma. Plasma is a yellowish liquid that basically contains things called electrolytes. It contains nutrients and vitamins, hormones, clotting factors, proteins, and antibodies to fight infection. And it's mixed in with basically the white blood cells and the red blood cells. And finally, you have platelets. Platelets are also called thrombocytes. They are basically what makes your blood clot when you have an accident or you cut yourself or you have some sort of injury. If you did not have platelets, your blood actually would not clot, and you would end up continuing to bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed, and sometimes possibly even bleed to death. So the platelets actually keep you from, they make your blood clot up so that you no longer bleed after a while. So all of these things basically are mixed all together inside of your blood, and they're what make up what we call blood. Some interesting blood facts. The average adult has about 5 liters of blood inside of their body, and it makes up about 7 to 8% of their body weight. To give you an idea of what a liter is, if you've ever seen a 2-liter bottle of soda, one of the bottles of soda, that's 2 liters. So you basically have about 2.5 of those inside of your body as far as blood goes. Blood is actually a living tissue. It carries oxygen, nutrients to all parts of your body. It has carbon dioxide in it and other waste products that brings back to your lungs, your kidneys, and your liver for disposal. It also helps fight infection and heal wounds so you can stay healthy. So your blood is actually a living part of you, or a living tissue. And there are about 1 billion red blood cells in just 2 or 3 drops of blood. So for every 2 or 3 drops of blood that you have over 1 billion red blood cells. For every 600 red blood cells, you have about 40 platelets and 1 white blood cell. So how does blood help move oxygen out to your cells? Well, oxygen is moved throughout your body using the red blood cells. All of your organs in your body have these little itty bitty tubes in them called capillaries. And these tubes are only 1 cell thick. So there's tiny itty bitty tubes running throughout all of your organs that we call them capillaries, and they're 1 cell thick. If you remember from the last video, we said that basically your arteries branch off and they carry the blood out to smaller arteries, which carries the blood to smaller arteries, which then carries the blood into these teeny little tubes, which are called capillaries. And these teeny little tubes called capillaries, again, run throughout all of your organs, and they are exactly 1 cell thick. Because these capillaries are so thin, they're only 1 cell thick, oxygen and carbon dioxide and glucose, all these things can pass right through them. So what happens is the oxygen that you're carrying inside your red blood cells goes into the capillaries, and then that oxygen passes through the capillaries into your organ, and your organ is then able to use it. There's capillaries in your lungs as well, so when the blood travels up to your lungs, the oxygen travels from your lungs through in the capillaries and goes into your red blood cells. The red blood cells that are full of oxygen then travel back to your heart through your pulmonary vein, And then your heart pumps those red blood cells throughout your entire body into the arteries. And then again, those arteries branch off into smaller arteries, which branch off into smaller arteries. And then they go into that blood with those red blood cells and all that oxygen in it goes into your capillaries. And then the oxygen passes through the capillary wall into your organs, and your organs are able to use the oxygen. Then basically those red blood cells, once they're empty, the oxygen completely goes out of them and they're empty, they will travel back to your heart through your veins, and then they'll go back out to your lungs and pick up more oxygen. You can think of red blood cells, and a great way to think of them as tiny little microscopic inner tubes. Your red blood cells are like itty bitty little inner tubes. They basically are flat when they're empty. Okay? They travel up to your lungs. The oxygen goes into them and then blows them up like an inner tube. And then they travel throughout your body. And once they get into your capillaries, they release that oxygen through the capillary walls into your organs. And then they go flat again. And they travel back up through your veins and back to your heart. So that's basically how oxygen moves to your cells. The red blood cells go into your lungs. They're flat and empty. Your lungs breathe in oxygen. The oxygen goes through these capillaries into the red blood cells, fills them up like inner tubes, carries those red blood cells back to your heart, where your heart then pumps them throughout your body. When they get to the different areas and the different capillaries, they release their oxygen to the organs so the organs can use them. They go flat as a pancake again, and then they travel up through your veins back to your heart, back into your lungs to get refilled. That's how oxygen moves through your body using red blood cells. So how does carbon dioxide move to your lungs? Well, you might think, well, if oxygen gets to my lungs and gets through my body using red blood cells, then carbon dioxide must use red blood cells too. That is totally wrong. Don't even think that. Take that thought out of your mind. When you're moving carbon dioxide to your lungs, basically your organs make all this carbon dioxide as a waste product. So as your organs are working and moving, they make all this carbon dioxide, and they release that carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide travels again through those itty bitty little capillary walls, and it goes actually into your plasma. And if you remember, we talked earlier, your plasma is like the yellowy liquid part of your blood. So they do not go into your red blood cells. The carbon dioxide goes into your plasma. And then it travels through your plasma back up to the right side of your heart. It then goes through your pulmonary artery into your lungs. And when that carbon dioxide inside that plasma gets into your lungs, it goes through the capillary walls, out into the air that's inside of your lungs, and you breathe out that carbon dioxide. So basically, carbon dioxide travels through the blood in the plasma, and the plasma takes it back up to the heart, which takes it to the lungs, and it's released when you breathe out. Now, your entire body needs glucose in order to function. Basically, guys, your body uses glucose and oxygen to create energy. So the oxygen is used to burn the glucose and actually create energy. It's a process called respiration. And what happens, so all your cells need oxygen, which they get from the red blood cells, and all your cells in your body and all your organs need glucose. Well, the way they get glucose, this is kind of cool because this goes back to the digestive system. Basically what happens is your small intestines, remember your whole digestive system breaks down all of this food into an itty bitty little nutrient called glucose. So your body's breaking down food into glucose. And then that glucose in your small intestines gets absorbed into your small intestines, and your small intestines are filled with all of these capillaries. Okay? And so the glucose travels through the very thin capillary walls and goes into your blood inside the capillaries. Now, again, it does not go into your red blood cells. It goes into the plasma. So the glucose gets absorbed by your small intestines. It goes into the capillaries that are running through your small intestines, throughout them. It goes into the blood, into the plasma, and then that same thing, that glucose travels through the plasma up to the heart. It stops at the lungs to release carbon dioxide, and then it goes back into the heart. and then your heart pumps that plasma back out to the rest of your body. And when that glucose inside that plasma gets into capillaries in all of your organs, it then travels through the walls of the capillaries and into your organs, so your organs can use the glucose to make energy. So if you haven't gotten the picture yet, in summary, these itty-bitty little capillaries that run through all your organs that are only 1 cell thick are so thin that glucose, oxygen, and carbon dioxide can travel through them into your organs, and so that the glucose and the oxygen travels into your organs. The carbon dioxide actually travels out of your organs into these capillaries, and that's basically how the whole system works. And then it travels through the capillaries into the veins, and through the veins to the heart, from the heart to the lungs, from the lungs back into the heart, and the heart pumps it all back through your body again. Just for fun, I thought I'd show you some pictures of blood, and it was included in the PowerPoint that I borrowed from the website, so why not use it? These are just some different pictures of blood. You do not have to draw them. Please do not sit there for hours and draw them or anything like that. All you got to do is look at them. I just thought they were kind of cool. Have a good day.